Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man, Frank SCALISH. This is like 164, 165, a little bit behind the scenes. We're kind of already getting a little bit of a game plan together for show number 200.
Yeah, it's going to be epic.
It is going to be epic. I was actually perusing, I was going through some old stuff, updating the YouTube page a little bit, and then it pulls up like recommended shows, and one of them was like the second show you did, like a series of 3. I was like gone for a tournament where you guest hosted with Mark, and it was like way before Day 4 or anything. It was cool. I ended up like watching a number of those, and I watched that yesterday, and it must be like nostalgia or something, because then Jeffries fired up the live and just went live last night for like 2.5 hours. I have no idea what he talked about for that. I like saw it today when I was building today's show, and I was like, wait, what do you mean? So I'll have to go back and listen to that. I know, like, I clicked on a couple things and it was like rant central.
Oh,
I have no idea what he was.
I didn't even know. I didn't know. I didn't get my notification. Usually I get notified every time we go live.
Yeah, there's a little bell that you can click on the bell if you're subscribed to the BTL channel on YouTube, and then you can click the bell. Like yesterday, I did like a 2.5-hour show with Jim Moyne. I was supposed to do it at 8:30 in the morning, Frank, and at 7:41, a straight line wall cloud came through the area and knocked down a tree across the street.
Perfect.
And the power went out for like, look at this photo of this wall cloud.
Oh, nice, dude.
I took that from my porch,
Shelter.
my front porch, and then boom, everything went out and no electricity. So we didn't go live until 4. But dude, Jim Moyne is the man. Like, if you want an old school, like he reminds me of you in a way. Like, there's like just that old school, the guys who have been there, that they've done that, the triumph, the heartbreak, and they come out the other side and they still have a passion for the sport after doing it for 30, 40 years, which is awesome to be able to do something for so long and still have such a passion about it.
Well, it's an addiction. I mean, it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, in all honesty, I'll fish for anything with fins and eyeballs, and I just love catching stuff. You know what I mean? And this is like, Rachel gets all, she's like, I don't understand how you go every day and you have fun every day doing the same, fishing all the time. And I'm like, because every time you get a bite, it's as exciting as the first time you got a bite. You know what I mean? Because here, think about this, Matt, especially now, today, with the electronics we have and everything at our disposal. You have a chance every time you go out of catching your personal best, no matter what species it is. You have that. Like when you and I went crappie fishing, it was all about getting a PB.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about the meat. It wasn't about, it was all about that PB. And so there's things that you could do that make it even more fun. We have a guest on the show today, and I've been fishing with him for the last couple days. And I've been fishing with him for most of my life, actually. And that's what we do. Troy Armstrong, everybody in the house.
Howdy.
But that's like what we did the whole time that we've ever fished together. We literally would pick crazy, stupid, nutty things and just go do it. And it kept
exactly like what you did yesterday. Are you going to get into what you guys did yesterday, or is that like a top secret?
No, we'll get into it. Just maybe not. Maybe I won't disclose the exact techniques that we used, but we'll definitely get into it.
It's an in-fisherman. It's definitely an in-fisherman technique. Like, it's something you'd read about in in-fisherman, like blah, for early summer muskies. Is the part where you'd only be like, only an in-fisherman article would have you doing that technique for muskies.
Correct. But yeah, it was a lot like one time. Okay. So one time, remember back in the old days, Fish Formula?
F plus L plus P
No,
equals
no, not
that?
the no. Get
So that
out
was
of
the
the
in-fisherman fish
yeah.
formula.
No.
Fish plus location
Fish
plus
formula.
presentation.
Fish formula attractant.
It was called fish formula?
Yeah, the spray. You sprayed
Oh
it
my
on.
gosh. How old is Matt? How old is this? How old is he?
Oh my gosh. I'm turning 40 in 2 months.
Yeah, fish formula. You got to know what fish formula is.
I grew up in Central Illinois as a Bang kid.
Oh my gosh.
I was the garlic combo or the combo Bang. That was the scent of choice growing up in the Assumption Bass Club. The
little spray can of Bang.
I was never
fish
yeah.
formula. It dominated the market in probably the 80s, early 90s.
Oh yeah, if you didn't,
that was it. That was the scent attractant.
Right, and I think it might have been one of the first attractants to ever come out. But anyhow, so they had this big fish formula tournament on Kentucky Lake, and so we were young. We were pretty young, really, and so we drive 11 or 12 hours to Kentucky Lake. We got this tournament we got to fish for. We get in kind of late. Troy and I go to the docks. It's dark out, but they got lights on the docks. It's dark out. Then we go down there and we see gar everywhere. Remember when we fished for the gar fish?
Oh, I remember.
So here we are, two imbeciles getting ready for a major event. Well, it was major back then for us, anyhow.
Well, no, this is an event that they had all their pro staff that fished, and it was everybody. I mean, I'm Billy Westmoreland, Larry Nixon, Paul Elias, Bill Dance, Roland Martin. I mean, it was like their pro staff came and fished. So it was for us. It was like it wasn't like we had the internet where we saw these people all the time. We saw them once a month in Bassmaster, and so it was a cool thing. So what do we do to prepare? We stay up the entire night.
Yeah, all night, gar fishing off the docks.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I can change this live. You're going to take... This is totally on my end. Someone said, you need to check your... I have Frank and Matt are joined by Fran's buddy, Troy.
I don't know anybody named Fran.
Well,
yeah, I'm gonna have to go in there after the show and add a K to the end of that. That's my bad. Sorry. Thanks for pointing that out, Noah.
Sometimes I might go as Fran.
That's why you keep it clean shaven. It helps the wig. You don't have to worry about it.
I don't need as much
adhesive strips.
And
oh my god!
Sorry, back to the story at hand.
Yeah, so we just spent the whole night gar fishing, and we're like nothing but that's like the deal, And then we had this one time. So when I was growing up, I had a Trans Am, a black Trans Am. Of course, and
straight up Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, and so there was this farm pond on this place where I used to rabbit hunt with my dad all the time, and the farm pond had really good bass in it, and it wasn't real far from where Troy was living at that time. So I called him up. I'm like, dude, I got this farm pond. We get blah blah blah. We got to go, and so we do. We go there in my Trans Am, and basically we took the Trans Am off-roading, and I got it stuck in a cornfield.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the funny part of the story is our initial reaction to getting this car stuck was not how are we going to get it out. We literally just grabbed the rods and walked the rest of the way in and didn't even think about the car until that night.
With it stuck.
With it, yeah. It was crazy.
Huh. Did we just lose Frank?
I do not see him.
Yeah, neither do I. Well, good thing you're on, Troy. We could just continue to talk about that. I'm trying to find the original fish attractant. Oh, Frank, here. We'll remove Frank on this one and then add him back in. That was weird.
There he goes.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, guys.
I can't find this original fish formula. I've seen posts about it, like guys are like, "What happened to it? What happened to it?"
we made it up. We're kidding. No, it was a huge thing. Their pro staff was literally everybody, and they did a big event on Kentucky Lake. I don't know. They did it 4 or 5 years. And heck, dang, Frank, it had to have been like late 80s, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it was like in the late 80s. We were armed to the teeth with our 5.5 foot pistol grips and our lose reels, and we went down there trying to fish deep water worm techniques and stuff. And
that's right.
We'd be throwing out there, we'd hook these fish and we'd fight them to the surface. They jump one time and spit the worm, and we're like, what's going on? And it's like we're trying to do this with like 5.5 foot pistol grip rods and
on a Texas rigged worm in 20 feet of water.
Yeah.
It's not much you're not getting much hook penetration.
Times have changed for sure. Yeah.
No. And then remember the one day we were out there practicing and we found all these fish on my 2D sonar on a 45-degree bank, and it turns out they were blue cats. And remember we sat there and caught them big giant blue cats.
Yeah. See, that's another example. We're practicing for this big, in our world at that time was just this humongous tournament fishing against all of our heroes at the time, and we get on a catfish bite and burn half the day catching these big catfish.
We did too, man.
That still happens now. I think that happens more, especially with technology. I mean, like, Andrew Upshaw had a video where he spent 4 hours over 2 days in a Bassmaster Open bed fishing on perspective mode for a 3.5 pound crappie.
Oh, wow.
And then he hooked it and it turned out to be a crappie. Like, I just did the same thing at this media event at Hartwell. And I was like, dude, these have to, and then I catch them and it's channel cats. And you talk, like, I know guys at Grand, I think we're learning that catfish, especially, way more aggressive, active, and game fishy than we used to think with, the Uncle Joe's stink bait on a treble hook on the bottom. They're not swimming around. I mean, those things are actively, especially blue cats.
Oh yeah, dude. So I grew up fishing the Ohio River, and I learned right off the bat the most prime catfish habitat, because I would catch them crankbaiting like it was my job. And so remember the show River Monsters?
Absolutely. Jeremy Wade.
So Jeremy would always be going after these cats and he's looking for the big elusive, whatever it is. And I'm like, dude, go to the bluff banks. They're on the bluff walls. You know what I mean? Oh my God, they're on the, and then sure enough, by the end of the show, he's fishing bluff walls and he's catching all these giant goonch or whatever them big cats are called. But yeah, and catfish, they are very aggressive, and they readily hit lures.
Have you ever had a topwater one? I had one absolutely decimate my favorite buzzbait on Arbuckle, and it was about a 9-pound blue cat. I'm up, I roll it by a stump, and it just goes, and it was the old Reaction Innovation squeaky dolphin. And I only had 2 of them. They actually just came out with another version of it, but it hit it so hard it took both of the little curves in the blade and just flattened them.
Oh
like
God.
Completely, like, and I'm like, my God, fish of a lifetime. And I get it in and it's a damn blue cat. And I mean, it trucked it on top.
Holy smokes.
It's the only topwater catfish I've ever caught, but I mean, it was vicious and violent. I've
never caught a catfish on topwater, but I've caught giant carp on wiggleworts. Walleye fishing back in the day, we'd go to the hot water discharges when they let us in them. That was before 9/11. You could go into hot water discharges and fish. And we would go in there and I would throw wiggleworts and I would catch walleyes and steelhead and coho and monster carp on them. Monster carp. So I was fishing this one discharge pipe with my father, and I throw the wart out there and I'm bringing it in, and it boom, and I lean in on the fish and I got him, and I'm like, oh my God, Dad, this is a giant, you know what I mean? And I didn't, carp was the last thing on my mind. So I get this thing into the boat and I pick him up for a picture. Well, I didn't take the crankbait out of his mouth yet. This is going. And I picked him up for the picture and I was trying to get him, like that. It wiggled and slipped out of my hands, and the crankbait went right into the middle of my chest cavity. And so I got this like 30-pound carp on, stuck to himself and me. And so now I'm bear hugging the carp to keep it from moving, and the hooks are in there. And I'm like, Dad, get the hooks out of this thing. Really get them out. You know what I mean? I can't hold this thing forever. He's wiggling around. So you think my dad would go to the carp and take the hook out of the carp or cut the hook out of the carp? No, he grabs the hook that's in me with the pliers and just pulls it out like that. I'm like, dude, come on. Oh God, just crazy shit.
You guys have been like, so Troy, are you here to like specifically musky fish, or did that just how get into yesterday? Because you guys said you had a pretty banner day. Like, is that what you came up here to do? Hang out with Frank and catch muskies, or did it just turn into a muskie trip?
No, I've been trying to, with our schedules, I've been trying to get, because I'm in North Carolina near Lake Norman.
Yep.
And I've just been trying to get back up here. I'm originally from the area, and Frank and I used to spend a lot of time together. I mean, we ran circuits together, and we've been fishing since good grief, early 80s, probably, maybe even late 70s. But
late 70s.
Yeah, late 70s. And it was just time. It's like I called him last week, and I'm like, dude, what's your schedule look like for this week? And he's like, I'm good. And so I'm like, I'm rolling. I had a tournament this week, or I had a tournament last weekend and another fishing event Sunday. And then Monday morning I rolled. And no, I mean, we don't usually have a whole lot we just fish, whatever.
You won both of those, didn't you?
Maybe.
On Norman?
No, well, it's a lake down there called Tuckertown, over on the chain. It's like on the High Rock chain. That's a pretty good little lake. But yeah, I just rolled down here, and we had, Frank had a kind of an idea what to do for the week, and we just started rolling, and it's, we're just having fun. And yesterday turned into a little bit of a musky day, and it actually ties in really well with his carp story, because I'm telling you, there needs to be an Uncle Frank first aid kit, because
yes,
I've never seen someone that gets so injured so badly fishing as Frank. And yesterday was a really good example of that.
Yeah. So every time I target muskies on purpose. I fish for them. I like them. I like catching them. But every time I go muskie fishing, I literally come back bloody. Like I'll be holding pictures of muskie up, and there's blood all over the place, and it's never their blood. It's always mine.
And he tells me this before the trip. So I kind of take it as like, that's funny. Well, then
right.
I lived it.
So, I mean, here, check it out.
Oh my gosh, that thumb is just tore up.
Oh,
have you heard of hydrogen peroxide, Frank? Maybe dip that thumb in that for about 30 seconds.
So it never fails. I mean, it just never fails. So I bought a bigger net. So once you get them in the net, you can keep them up and cradled, and they don't flop around as much and blah, blah, blah. So I get the hooks out of the fish finally, and I'm like, cool. Let's get a picture of him. So I jaw grab him underneath his jawbone, and I got him, and I'm holding him up, and we do the pictures. Okay.
Really good
now so here, I could show you the fish. I have it.
Just a straight up muskie or a tiger muskie, or
no, a straight up true muskie. So
that's a good one.
So I got him, and you see how my upper hand is on the bottom of his jawbone.
Yep. Safest place to hold it to not get destroyed and to keep the fish healthy.
Right, exactly. So usually when I release them, I put them head first in the water, hold their tail, and then let them torpedo in the water, head first. It was really windy because, you were talking about your storm cloud that came through. Yep. We had one come through on us as well. And we had like 20 plus mile an hour winds, and it was real windy. And, we found an area where we could catch them. I was excited, and I just was holding them by the jawbone, and I was setting him in the water, and I went to let him go, and I opened up my hand, and as soon as his tail hit the water, he lunged up and he got my thumb, but didn't let it go. He clamped down on me, and then his body weight, as he went in the water, his body weight went down.
Raked your thumb.
Yeah, raked my thumb. And so, typical, I get a micro cloth out, I cut it in strips, wrap it around my thumb, tape it up, and you know what I'm saying?
You do the hydrogen peroxide thing, right? Dude, you have to get a bottle, and the brown bottle at CVS or Walgreens or whatever of hydrogen peroxide. Put it in a bowl and just put that whole hand in there for 30 seconds. And if you pull it out and it's all white and foamy around it, it's doing its job. Like it will take down the swelling and the pain within 12 hours. It's amazing I have like 6 bottles of those things around here.
What's it do for spider bites?
What the heck, Frank?
That's what Troy's saying, my first aid kit.
Oh, and that wasn't his only musky injury yesterday. He forgot about the other one.
What happened with the other one? Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
Second-degree blister burns on your thumb.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so look at that. That's a second-degree burn.
Free-spooling the muskie or something?
Yeah, I did. I did. I hooked this giant one. And I'm using my bass tackle. I don't use musky tackle. And I hooked this giant one. And it was staying down. It wasn't coming up. And so I was leaning on it, reeling in, and it took off. So I usually thumb them. I spool them and thumb them, let a little bit of line out so I can control it, and then reel in again. And then he wants to make a run, and I thumb him a little bit. And I have my drag set as an emergency drag. So if I accidentally don't thumb him on a run, he doesn't break me off. So anyway, I thought that the fish was coming up because the line started to come up. The fish never made it to the top of the water. It just took off like a missile, and it was like, and my thumb was on fire. It's like, what the hell is going on here, man? But yeah.
Did you end up losing it or catching it?
No, he came off.
Oh no! It was a 50-incher.
Probably.
It was a big one. Yeah.
It was bigger than the one I caught.
Did you guys catch any bass at all?
Yeah, we did. We did. But they were nothing.
Yeah, Frank caught one good one. Did you show him a picture of that good one?
Oh, yeah, we did catch a bass. Let me show. I got one really good one. I got to show you guys this one. This is amazing.
Oh, yeah, that's a solid. Safe to say the bass fishing was not
solid, dude.
You can see why I left North Carolina to come up to Ohio for sure.
100%, dude. Come on, man.
While we're on the topic of pictures, Troy, you are the gentleman who took the infamous picture of Frank back in the day that I show every show. So that picture, that came from, I would assume, I mean, that had to be like just an actual camera. You had no idea what you had until it was developed, right?
Oh yeah, the magic was not apparent.
Do you remember this day? Like, what's the background on this picture, Troy?
Now, see,
I'm telling you, it's Lake Erie.
Frank says it's Lake Erie. I think it's at Kentucky Lake. I thought it was at the rock outcropping at Kentucky Lake when we were sitting there holding on to the rock outcropping with our 1982 spot lock.
Yeah, we were actually. This is how stupid we were back in the day. So we found a pile. I mean, it was a pile of bass. So we remember this was one of our first big events. Okay, so after we were done catfishing and gar fishing, we found these bass, and
we actually did find time to practice.
And so we get this brainiac idea that we got to guard the spot so nobody else could find it. So we get up at I don't know, what was it, 3:30 in the morning?
You were those guys.
We get up at 3:30 in the morning, and we go there, and we go to the rock, and we just sit there.
the entire day, we're holding on to this rock outcropping to protect our pile of fish so that Larry Nixon wouldn't come and steal them from us.
And we literally sat there for the better part of the day. And it was like 112 freaking degrees out. we're getting heat stroke. I'm dizzy. I don't know where I'm at. I can't.
Yeah, because you got to remember too, we didn't have bottled water back then or nothing. It was just you were just out there in the elements.
We actually had to jump in the water to get our body just back to normal. We were so stupid. I don't know what the hell we were thinking.
Did the strategy work?
Hell no, dude. We went there in the tournament. We didn't catch a fish off of that rock.
Did guys try to get on it? Like, would guys drive past and be like, "What the hell?"
Oh yeah. We had to push some people away. We got on the trolling motor, and there was a couple times we had to get out and act like we were doing some milling around, and yeah.
Oh my
gosh! That's
it was. I mean, looking back at the time, it was the right move, but looking back, good grief,
we were so dumb. We were so dumb. I mean, the coolest part about fishing is, if you're able to remember where you were when knowledge wise, and how your knowledge progressed over the course of time. It's so funny because Matt, you got to realize like back then, the biggest invention to come out on the market back then was a paper graph, the Lowrance X15 paper graph. And so for those viewers watching today that have no concept of what that is, you literally had two spools of paper. They were connected. And you open the front of your graph up, and one goes in one side, one goes in the other side. Then you got this little metal bar that looks basically like an opened paper clip, and it's called a stylus, and you clip it in on this belt, and that thing goes around and marks the paper. So if you're a big grapher, you burn these stylus down. So you got to keep a container full of new stylus. You got to keep new graph paper, and you have to keep it all dry. So you got to keep it, in a Ziploc bag and everything. And so that was really the first thing. Like the main thing that we had on our bass boats back in the day was a really good compass. That was the most important tool you could have back then, was a compass. That's the unit.
Yeah, there you go. So
is that worth buying for $119 right now?
If you are into the old school, vintage stuff, 100%, that's worth $119.
So this shows you how ate up we were, and still are, but how ate up we were back in the day. Now remember, I lived 500 miles away from Frank, and he'd call me. He'd be like, "Hey, did you get anything? Did you get anything in the mail today?" I'd be like, "Nah." And the next day he'd be like, "Hey, did you get anything in the mail?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got it." Like Frank would mark something out on Lake Erie or a hump or something with fish on it, and then he would cut out the paper, and tape together all these sections of his thing, and then send it to me, and then we talk about this 2-foot piece of graph history
paper
for an hour on the phone about, you see how they're holding, they're here and they're relating
right
to this.
There. Like you would splice those pieces to this stuff right in here.
Cut them out, and he'd mail them to me, and we would talk about them.
You would go out, you'd paper graph, then you'd stitch it together, then you'd mail it. Then 2 days later, you guys would talk about it when you got it in the mail.
Yeah, 100%. Because we didn't have this. We didn't have this kind of.
It's we were starved. We were starved for, it was Bassmasters, and Bassmasters back then didn't even come out every month. In the summertime, they had the July, August issue, or they would combine a couple months. I think Bassmasters came out 8 times a year. So that was it. I mean, our information was Bassmasters and Fishing Facts and In Fisherman.
Right.
And
Bassin magazine was in there too.
That's right. Bassin. I forgot about Bassin. Yeah. Yeah. And it was just, there was no avenue for us. And, back then you couldn't even fish a tournament until you were 16. And so
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you weren't allowed to even touch a tournament at 16.
Yeah, even with like parental consent or they couldn't sign and let you fish. Like you could, it was very, so yeah. So we spent our time looking at paper graph printouts and.
So this is what it looked like then? Like there's that'd be
Yeah.
like the.
Yeah, that's it. Oh my gosh, that is money.
And that would be like, you'd have like, oh, I got my fresh Lowrance paper.
Yeah, it'd be like, it's like like a cash register, the receipt that you'd have to have all those extra spools with you. And then hopefully, you're out fishing and you're burning it up,
So how would you find it then? So you would be like reading the paper as it came off, and then boom, you'd see let's say it was a rock pile. You'd see it jump up on the paper. So it'd just be do, and then you would have to figure out, like, how would you find it then? Like, you knew you crossed it, but how would you know how far away? Oh, so as soon as you saw it going out, boom, buoy out.
As soon as it comes up, buoy out. And so I carried about 9 or 10 marker buoys in my boat at all times. I never had my eyes off that graph. I burned probably more paper than any human being.
So how would you go back to it then? Because you didn't have GPS coordinates at the time.
Triangulation.
On Erie?
Yes, even on Erie, and a compass. So on Erie, when you're offshore, I would have to take a compass reading. And I would take my compass reading from one point to another point, and then do it again another way. So I'm going to take 2 different compass readings, so it makes an X, and then the center of the X would be.
And you were able to go back fairly consistently and find it without spending hours graphing.
Yeah, I lost a couple, to be honest with you, where I was off on something and I could never find them again.
Oh, that had to be maddening.
Yeah, I mean,
did lose a couple that way, but like in a tournament.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, what I was saying is, like, when you would travel and we would go all over fishing these tournaments, I mean, the amount of printed information that you would have for your tournaments was ridiculous. You'd have these notebooks. You'd have every paper map that was made of the lake, because they were all slightly different. So you had all these paper maps. You had your notebooks with all your triangulation notes in it. And so you'd go back the following year or 4 years later to a lake, and hopefully somebody hadn't painted their house, because, you're off of the blue house, and now it's like, or the tallest tree over here hasn't fallen, or something hasn't messed up your triangulation.
That's why Roland Martin would come a month early, hire all the painters, and just paint every house a different color. Son, have fun finding that rock pile that you beat me on last time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And so, like, I always had one map that was never marked. I had the best map that was never marked, didn't have a mark on it. And I usually had 3 to 4 maps of every lake. And so one map I would mark with all my structural elements and stuff on it. And then one might be for spring, and then another might be for another time of the year. And then I could look at all the maps out and go, okay, so they're here in the spring, and so they're gravitating to here in the summer. And then you could see the routes that the fish are taking to get where they got to get. This was, clearly before we had all the knowledge that we had today. And then another trick we used to do in practice the day before the tournament, you would go out, and if you drop your buoy on your rock pile, all right, you sink it about 6 inches under the surface of the water. And so then when you come back and you get in the area, you stand up in the boat looking for that orange glow just underneath the water surface. So guys running by would never see it. And then, you know where it is, because you got your coordinates, your compass readings and stuff, and you get close to it, and then you start looking for it. And I've lost a couple buoys I've sunk before where I couldn't find them again. I'm like, damn it.
They're out there somewhere still.
They're out there somewhere. And then we camouflage buoys that we didn't sink.
A lot of the old school guys still paint buoys black. Like they'll have a model black couple buoys that are spray painted black. I know Ike always, I mean, I still carry 2 buoys with me.
Yeah.
God, this is uncalled for. Old Toad would like to know if you and Columbus trolled for tuna off the back of the Santa Maria. Just an unnecessary comment.
No, but Frank did tell me about it.
Oh my God. I don't put it past us. I mean,
so did it seem just like a natural progression then, or was it like a big deal when you didn't have to order paper anymore? Like, do you remember that transition? Like, were there some guys that were like, I'm still a paper guy for a couple of years afterwards? Like, it doesn't read as good as these electronic one, or it reads better.
It's going to ruin the fishing forever. The first electronic graph that came out, I was so skeptical because I'm like, there's no way it's going to show me the detail.
You remember what it was?
I do not. It might have been. It was definitely, for me, it was definitely a Lowrance unit because I was Lowrance from most of my life fishing until I wasn't, and now I'm part Lowrance, part Garmin, part Humminbird.
So I'm going to ask Frank a question. How long did you keep flasher units on your boat after the like the LCRs came out as a backup because you didn't trust the LCRs?
I kept them. I kept a flasher on my boat almost always after the paper graphs came out. I always had a flasher in my boat. When the first LCD graphs came out, I still had the flasher in my boat probably 3 years after they came out, and there was always a spot in the dash for the flasher. So
100%.
I always had
the boat. So the boats are like the CD players now. Like, remember when it was like, oh, your car has you put a CD player into your car or truck or whatever you had, and then it came standard with it. And now you can't buy. I don't think you can buy a car or truck with a CD player in it.
No, because
it's kind of like the flasher deal there.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And the flasher was bulletproof, dude.
It's still bulletproof. I mean, it's the Vexilar is still thriving up north, especially for ice fishing and stuff. I mean, it is bulletproof.
Yeah, it's one of the best ice fishing units.
Rumor has it that Mark Jeffries has 7 cases of that Lowrance graph paper that he's trying to sell at a discount for his bowling team. So just send it to Mark. Say, hey, I hear you're still trying to 15% off regular price for a case of the Lowrance graph paper.
Yeah, he tried to pawn off a unit a couple
he's getting on late. He's losing. He's getting on late night, doing 2-hour shows, trying to pawn off
everything.
Old Lowrance units. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I mean, dude, you should see they moved, and you should see his garage. He's like, what do you think those are worth? And I'm like, those rods from 2003? I was like, right now, nothing. But if you keep them another 20 years, they'll probably be worth something because then they'll be 50 years still in the package.
Right. So a viewer just sent me a photo. So let me show you this photo because we were talking about it. I got it. I'm going to hide the name.
Pistol grips.
Oh, there you go.
Grips.
Hell yeah. Those are the old Garcias, aren't they?
Yeah, it looks like a 4500, I think. But that's what we used to fish with. You know what I mean?
Did that have the little metal bar on the side? Because I remember, so when I first started, there were still a bunch of guys in the club that used the round reels, and they gave me a lot of the ones with the silk. Yep, that's it right there. They gave me a lot with that because they had all transitioned to the thumb bar that had just come out.
100%.
And the thumb bar was a big deal.
100%, dude. I remember it like yesterday. We used to take those little pistol grips and go down the Ohio River throwing a little 1/4 ounce spinner bait. You never stopped the boat. You just kept going and singing this little spinner bait in all the nooks and crannies. And it was so efficient because it was super close fishing. You were very close to the bank and it was very efficient. You know what I mean? And you could get so you could just put it anywhere you wanted it, but and then when when they when they were transitioning away from all these short rods, and starting to get into the rods with more length, because obviously you're talking about new techniques that are developed, you're talking about leverage on fish, et cetera, et cetera. I was a little slow in that transition. We were on Kentucky Lake smoking half-ounce spinner baits on these enormous grass beds. That was when
you're gonna say you're smoking half-ounce. Never mind.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I was slow on the transition.
Maybe that's why you guys just clutched a rock for 12 hours. Dude, we've been here for 12 hours.
Man, it seems like 2.
Right. Seems like just a minute ago. And yeah, so that's when I started to realize the importance of having the right equipment for the job. So we're launching this half-ounce spinnerbait as far as we could throw it, and you're burning it back to the boat, and you get a hook up, and you have no length. You're talking 5.5 feet, and you hit the fish, and he jumps and comes off every other time. That's when I realized that, they're like golf clubs. You gotta have,
paired up with old monofilament line,
right,
5.5 foot rod,
which stretched it stretched 2 feet for every 1 foot of mono back then.
I'm trying to find it. Like the first real legit 7-foot rod that I ever bought would have been in 1998, and it was an Abu Garcia Larry Nixon tournament special combo, and it was a big giant round Abu Garcia reel, had like an elaborate bass jumping on one side of it, Larry Nixon's autograph on the shaft, and it was like my flipping and pitching combo, but it was a big round reel with the thumb bar from Abu Garcia. I still have it out in the garage. I'm gonna go dust it off. I know I broke the tip off of it probably 20 years ago, but that was top of the line.
It's got to go in your room.
Yeah, no, I need to go get it. I know exactly where it is afterwards.
Remember when he was throwing that old Producto June bug worm in Florida, Larry Nixon, and he hooked that 10-pounder and it jumped, and he's like, "Oh my God!" and it jumped, and he got it. He landed.
Was that the Bassmaster deal where he walks it around the boat?
Yes.
And it goes, we've actually had him on the show and talked about that.
Yeah, so I think that's when his rods and reels came out after that event.
Oh my gosh! Remember the lightning rod from Abu Garcia? Or from Berkeley, the Berkeley lightning rod, right?
Yeah.
Dude, those were everywhere. That was like a high-end rod that you could get at Walmart.
Yeah.
I remember going in and getting the lightning rod and being like, I am dialed.
Yeah. See, I was a Lose guy back in the day.
Yeah, Lose.
That's all I had.
Wasn't that the reels that Fritz had, and they back reeled like half a turn, so you could
no anti-reversed on it.
Yeah, I have a bunch downstairs. I have tons of them actually. But I use their reels, their rods, exclusively growing up. I mean,
Loose speed stick, 5.5 foot speed sticks,
which was so much. It was so fun, man.
What was the? What did you guys use for spinning rods and reels back then? Like, what was the top of the line? Because that was not as developed as the bait casters, right?
No.
Like, did you guys use spinning rods and reels on Erie?
I used Iowa stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
but it was big and clunky, and I mean, it's nothing like it was now, right?
Yeah, they're metal. They're metal reels. Yeah.
So I used reels. I used Lose speed spin 1s and speed spin 2s, and then I used to make a lot of my own spinning rods, and then what the hell company was I with where I had the Tennessee handles made? Was that a Lose?
No, I think that was Falcon.
Falcon, maybe.
What is a Tennessee handle?
So it's the Tennessee handle, for lack of a better purpose, is just a reel handle that is made out of the same graphite that the rod is made out of.
Tape it on to the
you tape it on. So every spinning rod I had, my reels were taped on. So for essentially, yeah. So essentially, what you had was you had the rod, and then
Remember, you just tape it directly to the cork.
Right. So you had your rod and you taped it directly wherever
Yep.
the balance was. Usually it was really far forward on it. You tape it on there. And then I had some prototypes made because I'm like, this is weird. It's like too angular. So I had prototypes made that the handles were actually part of the blanks. Okay. Now I'm going somewhere with this. So the handle would be tapered right into the rod. Okay.
Okay.
And so then you would tape, you tape the reel on, wherever you needed the reel to be, you tape the reel on. Okay. And so I only had 4 of them. And so I was on Norman with Troy and we were fishing. And I said, dude, you got to try this new prototype thing out. They're badass. They're so sensitive and this and that and everything else. And I said, but you got to be really careful because these are the only, 3 or 4 in the world made. And so we weren't even paying attention when we fished together. We videotaped this a lot. And when we fish together, we're moving around in the boat, we're doing things, and it looks choreographed. We're never in the way of each other. We know everything that's going on, and you see us moving around, and it's never anything. So at this point in time, he's on the front deck. I moved to the back of the front deck, closest to the windshield. He's fishing his boat dock. I'm fishing part of another boat dock, and he goes, "Hey," and I don't even look up. I'm just doing my thing. I don't look. He goes, "Hey." I go, "What?" He goes, "I got good news and bad news." He goes, "What do you want first?" I said, well, give me the good news. He goes, "The value of your other 3 rods just went up." because he broke it. It's like, oh my God, he broke it. Now there's only 2 left.
Oh my gosh. That reminds me. So this is what I started with. So my dad fished casually, and he was born in like the 40s. So then in his 20s, he got a bunch of the Mitchell spinning reels. So then in the late 80s, early 90s, when we started going to Canada, I was still using those reels from the 60s and 70s. And I vividly remember I learned on this reel right here how to throw a spinning rod, that old Mitchell.
Absolutely.
Garcia right there. And that's a 400 there, but the 300. But yeah. I was trying to think of it back in the day, but like, wasn't that like the standard? Wasn't that like kind of the top end standard spinning reel in the 70s, 80s?
Oh, yeah.
That was like, 100%. That was the deal.
Yep. 100%. And guys that, like, we had some old timers by us that used to cut the bail wire off of it and just leave the hooked part that grabs the line. They would just leave the hooked part on, so they would have no bail wire. And so they would cast it, and then with their finger they would loop the line back into the little sit part where it picks up the line from. And they didn't even open and close a bail ever because they had no bail wire.
Were you guys both back reelers in the day?
Yeah, I was always a back reeler, hence the musky burn on my thumb.
Oh yeah. Troy, did you trust the drag, or were you back?
I was okay with the drag. Yeah, I never had a problem. Now,
see, I was a back reeler because of this.
Twist would, it helps with your line twist doing the back reeling. But
I was a back reeler probably until 5 years ago. No joke. Like, I did not trust drags like at all. Like, I back reeled every single time I hooked one on a spinning rod. And then a couple of the models actually came out and they got rid of the back because it's like the CD player now with the quality of the drags. People are like, you don't have to back reel with it. But I know that it took me a long time to actually trust a drag. And I think it was because I grew up on 1970s and 80s spinning reels.
Right. Where it was 2 washers and a bolt.
Yeah.
2
washers. You remember when they, for a short period of time, they were pushing the boron rods.
Oh yeah.
I wonder whatever happened to that. Yeah,
they were boron.
Like, and then when graphite first started getting real popular, then they started making boron rods.
Right. The claim to fame with the boron was the sensitivity, because they were not lighter than graphite.
No.
Of course, but back then graphite wasn't light either. I mean, heck, I've got rods from 10 years ago that when I pick them up now, they feel like, broom handles. They're so heavy, but the technology's come very far in our sport. It's amazing to see where it is now, and it's almost unimaginable where it's going. I mean,
Yeah, but see, when Frank's sending me chart paper, we used to think the same thing. We're like, oh man, what else could they possibly do with the technology? And
right. And here
they're talking like 1984. Here's an article that explains like that boron might be the next biggest in Field and Stream, the next biggest thing in fishing rods, and it's an uncommon material on Earth. Boron is a hard material to work with. Field and Stream article describes how boron gets into fishing rods, the filaments, with the drawing of fine tungsten wire through a heated reaction chamber filled with a boron-containing gas that deposits a scale of boron onto the tungsten.
Yeah,
but that was some cutting edge stuff.
Baby. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then here we are now with tungsten jig heads and everything else. But for the longest time, the one thing that changed the least in the beginning of fishing to almost the present day was the trolling motor. Essentially, the trolling motor has never changed until spot lock. And then all of a sudden now that the transducers are built into them, and and now they're Bluetooth compatible, and you know what I'm saying. I mean, it was only recently did the trolling motor develop, catch up to the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the same thing. It'd just be more powerful, look a little bit different, but it's still the exact same principle. You had the move that now has a reverse button on it, and spot lock, the ability to follow GPS, to integrate with your mapping system. Now there's all sorts of technological advances, but for the most part, a trolling motor in 1970 looks this and behaves the same as it does in 2020.
Yeah, except
thank goodness the batteries have followed now.
Yeah, no kidding. What a the convenience of a lithium battery is unbelievable. I mean, I would burn through lead acid batteries like, I would be going through them every 2 years. I'd be replacing them all. I mean, always, because
they never went out at an opportune time. You never lost a cell or got a bad battery when it was convenient.
Right, exactly, 100%. I'm just thrilled with. There's so much to fishing today that I can't imagine if we had it when we were coming up into the sport.
But at the time that was like cutting edge stuff. Like you're going, thank God we have this.
Right. Oh yeah.
Thank God we've got a paper graph. We would never know that there was a rock pile out here. Look at what this technology is allowing us to find rock piles in the middle of Lake Erie.
Right. Well, I mean, we used to look at them on our flashers, but yeah, 100%. And then, God, I was going to go somewhere with that, and I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh yeah. Sorry. Like our first GPS unit. This is fabulous. So the first GPSs that we had were literally, that's all you saw. It was blank until you put a waypoint down, and then you put a waypoint down, and there would be a dot where your waypoint was. And that was our first GPS. There was no map. There was no outline of a lake. It was just a gray background with a track line and a dot. And then, and so you could turn that thing on and you would see dots and track lines on a gray field. And then I remember when they made the outline of the lake, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Now I got the outline. I got the outline of the lake, and I know, blah, blah, blah. And then of course, then the mapping the mapping chip came out, and the mapping chip was going to ruin fishing forever, because now everybody's got the map in front of them and you don't have to do any work to find anything. And then, of course, everybody realized that the map, you're only as good as, or you can only find what's accurate on the map, and most of them were never accurate. They were only a close representation of things. And that's when I started really looking for nitty-gritty stuff. Off the wall, tiny little nooks and cranny things that would never be on any map ever.
But line wise, what was the first braided line you guys remember? I've got mine pulled up, but I there's no way it was the first, but I've got a line that is extremely nostalgic to me. I actually remember as a 12-year-old buying this spool of line and putting it onto a Zebco 33 on a Browning Vectra pistol grip rod and throwing a buzzbait with it in my first tournament ever.
So if it was that era, then you were throwing Dacron. I didn't start even monkeying with braid until I think Power Pro came out with it.
Yeah.
And that's when I experimented with braid.
Oh yeah, Gorilla Braid.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
I did too.
Yep.
Holy crap, dude.
Yep.
I remember as a 12-year-old with Gorilla Braid on thinking I'm never going to lose a fish again. Stuff is amazing. It's just full, and all the hooks come straight. You'll never lose a bait. You never lose a nothing.
Well, the interesting thing about the braid is, you're talking about the 50s and 60s, that Dacron line was real prevalent. In fact, I remember like going through my grandpa's old stuff, his old Mitchells and Ambassadors and stuff from the 60s, and it all was loaded up with that Dacron line.
What is that, like braid?
Yeah.
It's
a woven cloth line.
Yeah.
It's called Dacron.
Yeah, if you just looked at it today, you'd be like, oh, that's old braided line, but it's not. It's something completely different.
Yeah, and the irony of the old Dacron line is like some of my grandfather's reels, they had multiple color changes in them too.
Yep, 100%.
It was like triple fish today, with the you got a 3-foot color, a 3-foot color, et cetera, et cetera. And it held color better than the braids of today, but the line was unmanageable. To be honest with you, it was unruly. It didn't have the thin diameters that the braids of today have. It was clunky line.
And I'm sure it absorbed water.
Like a sponge.
Yeah.
Would you say that the line of choice for a decade and a half was Berkeley Big Game Low Vis Green? Like that was like what it seemed like was everyone had Berkeley Big Game. You get the spool of Big Game and you just spool that stuff on, and that's what everyone, at least in Illinois where I grew up, everyone flipped Berkeley Big Game mono.
Yeah, I like Stren. I used Stren a lot.
The high vis blue.
yeah, and they had they came out with, what was that called?
Prime
line, which was like a co-filament.
Really?
Yeah, it had an insert. It had a low stretch insert surrounded by an easy casting outer coating. But the problem with that is that the insert, if it wasn't extruded perfectly, the insert would loop out from time to time. You would see that insert, and then they had to do a marketing campaign saying how that's how you know when to change your line. But but really what it was a flaw in the product. Now, the truth about the Prime line was it had the least amount of stretch.
Yeah, it was closest to Fluoro.
Prime, Prime.
Yeah, they had Prime and Prime Plus, which I don't know what they did to change it to make Prime Plus, but yeah. That's what I threw that a lot.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Because we were always looking for a better hookup percentage back then because the rods
Is that it?
Yes.
That's the Prime Plus. Yeah. The Prime, I think, was like a all green package.
DuPont?
Yeah, DuPont made it.
There you go.
I've never even heard of this line.
See, look at how educational this is. History.
Co-filament fishing line. Yeah. Guaranteed to catch more fish. Let's see what the back says.
See the insert? They showed you the insert on the back.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
A major breakthrough gives Prime Plus co-filament increased sensitivity, strength, outperforming, better handling, less stretch, lets you sense the slightest nibble. That's a word that is not used in bass fishing nearly enough anymore.
We had lots of nibbles, lots of nibbles back then. Yeah,
that's right. The nibble.
Low stretch, faster, sure hook sets. Now, this is back in the day. Try Prime Plus for 30 days with your favorite rod. If you don't catch more fish than you could with any monofilament, return spooled line and purchase receipt for a full refund.
There you go.
They could never do that today. And look at the photo on that. It's on an Oriental rug.
$7.99. That was probably expensive back in the day for a spool. 250 yards at $7.99.
Yeah, but only the best to get them nibbles.
Right, nibbles. That that was a guy fishing in freshwater that made that term up.
I will tell you this. I know this afternoon. Frank and I are going to hit the water again, and we will probably use the word nibble 200 times today.
That's how it's gonna go.
The big ones like to nibble.
No BS. Clay with the muskie photo. That looked like a muskie to me. But yeah. Really good. So we got more adventures. We got a fishing adventure today after the show, which I won't say where we're going. And then Friday we'll have another fishing adventure. And then it's, Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah. You going to go out on the water Memorial Day weekend, Frank?
Not a chance.
Get to the boat ramp about 10:30 on Saturday?
You won't get in. They'll be full. You won't get in. No, I don't ever fish on this weekend. Ever. Never. I've learned a valuable lesson. But yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait to get on the water. See how else I could injure myself today.
That was a fun show.
Oh my gosh.
Next week, day 4, you unveil the next Signature Series color.
And next week would be the 30th.
Correct.
Yes, I think we're going to do an unveiling.
And we are also going to try something new next week where you can we bring a couple fans on? A couple listeners, Frank?
Yeah, we have to. We got to.
All right. So
we're kind of, because we're constantly growing. Day 4.
Yeah, we're going to bring back the Q&A question, but what I'm going to do is in the comment section, I'm going to pin the direct video link to the show. And while you're live, if you're watching live and you have a good internet signal and audio and video, all you have to do is log in and I can see you backstage on my system right here. And then I'll bring you in and you can be a part of day 4. And we're going to do that probably once a month.
Yeah, I like it. Then you could ask your questions live.
Yep.
We can go back and forth. I think that's great, dude.
Yep.
And Matt will have control over the people that can't control themselves.
See, watch, like, boom. You do something wrong, boom. What?
That's so funny.
It is.
Now,
you say something Frank doesn't like, Frank, just give him the wave off.
Boom.
Boom.
That's like him working the trolling motor in the front of the boat with me.
Yeah.
He doesn't share?
No, we're really good. We do. We work well together.
Yeah, well, when we're fishing a bass fishery, we usually will alternate fish for fish on the front. Like yesterday, I stayed on the front trolling motor without casting for a while, because it was all about getting the hook up on the muskie.
I thought it was because he was bleeding out.
Well, that was the other thing. I'm lightheaded. I don't know where I'm going.
Dude, your hand bleeds so much more than you realize. Especially like when you do like one of those little fish cuts and then you look down, you're like, holy cow.
Oh yeah.
Like it will not stop bleeding.
he was gouged, and like last night, he was changing his bandages out until I went to bed last night. So I don't even know when his hand stopped bleeding.
Yeah, sometime when I went to sleep. But it's my fault. I mean, it's my fault. I love catching those things, and I'm just so bad at handling them. You try to be gentle and ginger, because you don't want to kill them. I don't want to hurt the animal. And then it's like if you don't handle them with some type of force, they impose their will on you.
That's your best friend right there. That brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide. I'm serious. It's like a buck. Just soak your hand in that. Have you not ever done that with the hydrogen peroxide?
Yeah, I've used hydrogen peroxide a time or two.
It will make everything feel so much. It takes the swelling down. It takes any of that infection out of it.
I used to just get super glue and glue them all shut. But
You
then
gotta hydrogen peroxide it, dude.
Or
Then you
maybe a
can't do
glove. Maybe a glove and just prevent the
well, you were
mayhem.
supposed to bring your fish glove with you.
A little bit of Neosporin.
Yeah, that's what did Rachel sprayed it with Bactine yesterday. When I cut the towel light I had taped on off, she's like, "Oh my God, you got to spray it with this." She's dousing it in there. I go, "You might just put rubbing alcohol on it."
Yeah, that's an option. My
Pretty
dad
much
was
what it is.
he's still a big rubbing alcohol guy. Any cut or abrasion, like your spider bite, rubbing alcohol.
Oh yeah. Put it on. It'll only burn for a minute. That's what they say. It only burns for a minute.
Sunburn, rubbing alcohol. Amputated finger, rubbing alcohol. Everything, rubbing alcohol. Like that was, I was growing up, just forced a steady diet of rubbing alcohol for anything that remotely looked like a scratch, cut, bite.
Dude, it's like you grew up in an ethnic family. Everything was rubbing alcohol or Windex.
All right, guys. Troy, thanks for jumping on. Thank you for all those years ago taking that picture Kentucky Lake while you guys
it was too much.
Kept Larry Nixon off of your juice.
Yeah,
we did, man. We were adhered to that rock almost like a barnacle.
And we will be back next week. Tomorrow, Guide Day returns with Jack York, young dude in his 20s, busts his hump, guides on probably one of the most competitive and toughest lakes to guide on in the country, which is Lake Fork, down in Texas, and catches a bunch of big fish, doing a number of different stuff. Also fishes the open EQ. So we're going to record that episode, and then that'll be out on Friday. And then next Thursday, you got a chance to be a part of day 4. So Troy, it was a pleasure.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
We're giving away color number 7s too.
Okay. Are you sitting in is that Frank's fireplace in his bedroom that you're in front of?
I'm trying very careful not to touch anything, but yes, I am in Frank's bedroom.
Yes, you are.
I like it. Like I said, we got a little FDR fireside chat going on. You ever fire up? You ever get that thing fired up, Frank, like in the wintertime?
No, because the house was built in 1914 and I don't trust the firewalls in it.
That's probably very smart.
Yeah, and my house is so old that the wood in it, I was drilling to put lights in the basement. I was drilling through some of the beam boards to run conduit through. I was burning auger bits out.
It's petrified.
It's like petrified.
Real wood.
So I'm scared to death. I mean, if a match went off in this house, I think it would burn up in about 10 minutes.
Hey, if you guys are also looking for something to watch, it is KVD's last day of competition over on the BPT. Like, it's the heavy hitter, so he qualified for it last year.
Was he?
So I know. What's that?
Was he sitting in 5th after yesterday?
Yeah, but they zero the weights, so it's a barn burner today. So he is currently in 2nd, going into the 2nd period. Like, he's got a chance to win his last event. You know, they did a big the Kings of Bass did a big thing on Red Crest, kind of his last championship tournament, but this is actually his last tournament, if you choose to believe that. And he's got a chance to go out on top here. So it's going to be between him and Joe Lee, it looks like. I mean, they're opening up. They've got a 7 or 8 pound lead over third place, Todd Faircloth. It's real stingy. But yeah, he's
I hope he wins it. It'd be a great way to go out for him.
It would. Best to ever do it.
Anybody else?
Best to ever do it, no doubt.
Agreed.
So,
Matt, when's your next one?
Eufaula in a month in Oklahoma.
Wow. When's it go off limits?
Like 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It went off limits last Saturday.
Gotcha.
Yeah, goes
Man,
off limits.
I like the opens when there was no off limits on them.
I think next year they're going to off limits as soon as the schedule's announced. So we'll have like a 1 year off limits.
Oh, wow.
Well, what's going to happen to the guys that live on the lakes?
I think that you can probably still go onto the lake. You just cannot gather information on the lake up until.
Well, wait a second.
I think the way that it's going to work.
Because if you could theoretically, if you could fish on the lake, what's the point of making it an off limits lake?
Well, because you can go get all the information yourself. You can go pre-practice. You just can't be on it for 30 days before the tournament.
No. So I'm talking about an off limits, not for information, for fishing purposes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're going to keep that at like 30 days.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speaking uneducated on this stuff. So.
No, and I'm even more so because all I like to do is fish and do this podcast and make.
I'm in the process of rigging out the new cat. I went to Mountain Home and picked up the new Puma STS yesterday, 2 days ago.
I saw the pictures. The boat's nice, dude.
I'm headed up to the bass tank sometime either today or tomorrow. I'm gonna try to get it up there in between tornadoes and
just
get it rigged out. Get the pro guides in it, and
don't leave it parked by any standing trees.
No.
Let me ask you a question. Did you notice any speed drop going all lithiums?
I have not gone all lithiums yet, so I'm going all lithiums this year. But I still have in this past boat. I still have 2 AGMs.
Gotcha. Because I haven't. Yeah, I went all lithiums and I ran it the other day and I lost 3 or 4 miles an hour on it.
I mean, technically, couldn't you just put some bricks in the back?
Yeah, I mean, you could, but I would have to add the weight I took out.
Yeah.
And that's like 160 pounds. So that's a lot of bricks. But I gotta reprop it. Now I gotta get with Tom and go and reprop the boat because now what's happening is my boat likes to run up the level. Now I'm running up and the nose is dipped a slate. I can't get the bow up with the prop I got now, so I gotta reprop the boat, which is no big deal, but it's just, for handling purposes, it's important to have the boat rigged properly.
There you go. You guys hear the background music?
Love it, dude. Means we're
Troy, thanks for jumping on. I greatly appreciate it. I know this probably took away from your fishing time.
Oh yeah.
You're like, why am I sitting here doing it? Why are we not on the water?
Yeah, I'm ready for some nibbles.
This has been another edition of Day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Same place, same time next week. We'll talk to everybody then. See ya.